I noticed that in every cultivation world, there's always one arrogant and cocky genius who gets brutally humiliated by another ordinary person who acts all meek to crush the cocky opponent. That's such a classic trope. So when I found out I had insanely overpowered talent, I didn't tell a single soul about it. I just kept a low profile and focused on cultivating until the sex grand competition arrived. I ended up being matched against my cousin in the draw. She had a totally arrogant look on her face, carrying my sect leader father's bonded sword in her hand. Wearing the protective robe my brother bought at auction for 1,000,000 spirit stones. Right before the match, she also swallowed a pill made by my immortal physician mom, refined completely by her own hands. Her spiritual power immediately surged to mid-golden core stage. I looked at the smug expression on her face and thought back to right before I stepped on stage. The words my mom said to me in person. Don't blame me for giving all those things to Nyanian. She's always been super competitive since she was little. If she loses to you, she'll be really heartbroken. Seeing that, I couldn't help but burst out laughing, because none of them have any idea my cultivation already broke through to the Mahayana stage ages ago, and all those things are totally worthless to me. The bell for the start of the match rang. Konemade the first move. Cousin? She smiled really sweetly. I'm not gonna go easy on you, okay? Before she even finished speaking, her sword was already right in front of me. The first stab went straight for my face. I didn't move, only when the tip of the sword was half an inch away from my nose. I tilted my head slightly, and right after that, the blade brushed past my hair, cutting off a few strands, which slowly drifted down to the ground. She was stunned. She never expected I could dodge that. Up on the viewing platform, my dad frowned slightly, seeming a little displeased. My brother was standing with his arms crossed and curled his lip, like he was saying, "You're really good at random dodging, huh?" Gunia reacted really fast. After that first strike missed, she twisted her wrist and swiped the blade horizontally towards my neck. This strike was even faster, but I still didn't move. I just leaned back a tiny bit, letting that purple sword glow brush past the bridge of my nose. When she exhausted that whole set of sword moves, I slowly straightened my body back up. Gunian finally couldn't keep her composure anymore. She stopped talking. Her attacks got more and more fierce, and in no time, the entire competition stage was filled with her sword shadows. Sword energy crisscrossed everywhere, like a huge net, trying to trap me inside, and I just stood right in the middle of that net. When sword energy sliced towards me, I turned sideways to dodge. When sword glow stabbed towards me, I ducked my head to avoid it. She was fast, but I was even faster. Just a tiny bit faster than her. Every single one of her strikes looked like it was meant to kill me, but every strike missed by just the width of a single hair. It looked like I was just really lucky. People on the viewing platform started whispering, "Gulo's luck is so crazy good, right?" Yeah. Senior sister Gunian is using killing moves every time, and she dodged every single one. I heard my dad say to my mom, "Look at Nianian's sword skills. She's improving so much. She's just like I was back in my day." My mom nodded with a really proud look on her face. Right? This kid is really promising. My dad looked at Gunian with eyes full of approval. Then he glanced at me. The disappointment in his eyes was so thick you could almost touch it. Like he thought I was nothing but a wooden stake that only knew how to dodge stupidly, and that I was embarrassing him. My brother even snorted coldly directly. It wasn't a loud sound, but I heard it. He probably thought Gunian was going easy on me and just playing around with me. Gunian on the stage was already a little out of breath. She had been pushing her golden core stage spiritual power way too hard, so she was starting to run out of energy. While I didn't have a single scratch on me, that made the smugness in her eyes finally turn into shame and anger. "Cousin, do you only know how to dodge?" I looked at her and smiled. "Nah," I said, "I'm just waiting for you to go all out." That sentence was like pouring gasoline on a fire. Gunian's face instantly turned bright red with rage. "Fine," she roared. She pulled her sword back and retreated, and poured every last bit of her spiritual power without holding back into the purple lightning sword. Her eyes were wide open. A destructive aura started gathering at the tip of the sword. She was really going to kill me this time. The crowd below burst into shocked gasps. I looked up at the viewing platform at my dad, my mom, and my brother. The three of them just sat there quietly watching. None of them made any move to stop her, The glow on the purple lightning sword is getting brighter and brighter, and more dazzling. The surrounding air is getting distorted. A wave of destructive aura hits me right in the face. A breathtaking sword strike. Gunian roars at the top of her lungs, pouring all her spiritual power into this move. Her eyes are bloodshot. There's a crazed, pleased look on her face. It's like she's already seeing my dantian shattered, and my cultivation completely destroyed, looking utterly miserable. Gulo, I'll cripple you. The sword light flies out of her hand, turning into a purple light streak. It shoots straight towards my lower abdomen. It's so fast you can't even make out its afterimage, leaving only a burning trail behind. The crowd below goes wild. That's a killing move. Oh my god. Senior Sister Gunian is going all out. If this sword lands, Gulo will be crippled even if she doesn't die. Why isn't the sect leader stopping her? Listening to all these shocked exclamations, I look past that deadly sword light and set my gaze on the very center of the ceremony viewing platform. My dad is still sitting there steadily, holding a teacup. He doesn't even twitch his eyebrow. He's staring at this strike that's enough to cripple his own biological daughter, and there's not a single hint of stopping it in his eyes. Instead, he looks like he's admiring a masterpiece. The corner of my mom's mouth even has a faint, barely noticeable smile on it. She once told me seriously to never make Gunian sad. Looking at it now, crippling me is the best way to keep her from being upset. My brother has a cold, indifferent look on his face, like he's watching a show that has nothing to do with him. Maybe in his eyes, I, his little sister, should have been eliminated a long time ago. In that moment, I suddenly feel so bored of all this. What's the point of fighting for anything? That last little bit of warmth left in my heart feels like it's shattering along with that sword light anyway. That purple sword light that could blow a golden core cultivator into bits. In my pupils, it grows bigger and bigger until the very second it's about to touch my clothes. I finally lift my right hand. Not too fast, not too slow. Just like I'm swatting away an annoying buzzing fly. Then I stretch out my index and middle fingers and twist gently at the tip of that purple light streak. Time seems to freeze for a second, then there's a soft crack. It sounds like popping a soap bubble. That purple sword light, which held all of Gunian's cultivation power, is just like a wisp of smoke that's been snuffed out, vanishing completely between my fingers. The whole world goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Gunian on the stage is still frozen in her sword-striking pose. The expression on her face stuck. She looks like she's seen a ghost. Thousands of disciples below have their mouths hanging open, their eyes wide as saucers. They can't say a single word. On the viewing platform, my dad's teacup is frozen midair. He forgot to drink it or put it down. The smile on my mom's face freezes, looking absolutely ridiculous. My brother's hand holding his sword tightens unconsciously, his knuckles turning white. I lower my hand, looking at the stunned Gunian. Then I glance at the sword in her hand. That's my dad's bonded sword. Then I flick my finger gently in the direction of that sword. That cracking sound wasn't their imagination. Fine cracks started from the tip of my dad's bonded sword, quickly spreading across the entire blade. This purple lightning sword, which was said to be able to cut through black iron, now looks like a cheap porcelain item that's about to shatter. Gunian's face is even paler than the sword. The small gust of wind I flicked out went around the sword, slamming hard into her chest. She flies back like a kite with a broken string, soaring backwards, leaving a messy arc in the air. Finally, with a loud thud, she crashes onto the stone floor more than 10 meters away. She struggles to get up, but as soon as she lifts her upper body, she spits out a huge mouthful of blood. The bright red blood splatters on the blue stone competition stage, looking extra glaring. The whole venue is dead quiet. I walk slowly up to her, looking down at her. The resentment and madness in her eyes are gone, replaced by sheer, absolute terror. This competition, my voice isn't loud, but it's loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. I win. After saying that, I don't look at her anymore. I turn around to face the viewing platform. That heavy stone that's been weighing on my chest for over 10 years. Feels like it's been crushed to pieces by that flick of my finger just now. I speak slowly. Starting today, I, Gulo, voluntarily give up my position as the young sect leader of Qingshuan sect. These words hit like a bombshell, exploded among the crowd. The audience below erupted into chaos right away. Everyone thought they'd heard wrong. My dad's face turned bright purple with rage. He shot up and pointed straight at me. His voice was shaking. You? What did you just say? I paused for a beat at the same time. Word for word. Crystal clear. I want to leave the Qingxuan sect. The entire Qingxuan sect square went dead silent for a split second. Then an earth-shattering uproar burst out. You ungrateful brat. My dad finally roared out loud. Sect leader's aura mixed with furious, unhinged rage. How dare you say that again? Luor, stop this nonsense. My mom panicked too. Her voice was shrill. Apologize to your dad right now. Tell him you were just joking. My older brother even snapped sharply. His long sword was half drawn from its scabbard. Kula, are you crazy? Take that back right now. Take it back. I laughed inside my head. Words you've already said are like spilled water. Besides this sentence, I've been holding it in for 10 whole years. I didn't spare them another glance. Under their shocked, furious, disbelieving stares, and the watchful eyes of all the sect disciples, I turned around, took a step forward, and headed in one direction. It wasn't towards my living quarters, nor towards the sect gate. It was the Kengjing Pavilion. Stop! My dad's furious roar came from behind me, carrying the pressure of spiritual power. I told you to stop. You unfilial girl. My mom's voice was choked with sobs. Gulo, get back here right now. But I didn't stop for even a single step. When your precious niece was being fawned over by everyone, where was I? When you gave her all the best resources of the sect, where was I? Holding the sword you gave her? Wearing the armor you bought her? Taking the pills you refined for her? When you were about to destroy my Dantian, where were you then? Now you're telling me to stop? What gives you the right? The Kengjing Pavilion, the oldest building in Qingxuan sect. The quietest, most ignored building too. But for me, that place is the real home. I pushed open that heavy wooden door. A scent mixed with old books and sandalwood hit me straight in the face, familiar and reassuring. The attic was dimly lit. Only a few rays of sunlight spilled through the high window lattices, carving out several beams of light in the air. You could see countless tiny dust particles dancing in those beams. A hunched figure was sitting in the corner, holding a rag in his hand, slowly wiping down a row of bookshelves. Old man Molang paused his wiping motion for a second. Without turning his head, his voice was old and hoarse. Well, the young sect leader feels like visiting my shabby place today. I walked up to him, casually picked up another rag, and helped him wipe the shelves. I'm not the young sect leader anymore. Old Mo paused, wiping the books again. He finally turned his head around. His cloudy eyes scanned my face for a bit. He made a small sound. Oh! He drew out his tone. What are you then? A rogue cultivator with no sect affiliation. Old Mo grinned, showing his gum with few teeth left. Not bad, rogue cultivator is good. Rogue cultivators are free. He put down the rag, fumbled around in his chest pocket for a long time, pulled out a pitch-black, unidentifiable token and handed it to me. The token was ice-cold to the touch. There was a weird twisted symbol carved on it. Looked like a ghost face. Take it. What's this? I asked. Travel money for a long trip. Old Mo stuffed the token into my hand. I've guarded this place my whole life. Didn't save up much valuable stuff. Only this little thing. Maybe you'll need it someday. I looked at him. Old Mo, you knew I would leave long ago, didn't you? When your dad gave that lousy sword to Gunian. I knew it already. Old Mo picked up the rag again, said while wiping the shelves. A proper phoenix? Forced to stay in a cage with a bunch of dumb chickens? Would suffocate to death sooner or later. He glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. You've been holding it in for way too long. I fell silent. Yeah, that's right. It's been so long that I can barely even remember. That I used to be able to fly too. You've had it really rough all these years. Elder Mo sighed. His voice dropped to a low murmur. At such a young age, you figured out cultivation all on your own, and made it to that level completely by yourself. You didn't even have anyone to talk to. Watching them treat those lousy, useless trinkets like treasures, and shove them at that girl over and over again. It must have hurt a lot, right? I shook my head and smiled faintly. I got used to it a long time ago. Of course I felt bad back then. But after getting disappointed time after time, my heart went cold and I went numb. Now all I feel is calm. Let's drop it. No need to talk about it anymore. Elder Mo waved his hand. It's good you're leaving. The wide sea lets fish leap. The high sky lets birds fly. This tiny little pond that is Xingxuan sect can't hold a dragon like you. I turned to face Elder Mo and bowed to him solemnly and respectfully. This wasn't a bow from a young sect master to an elder, nor from a disciple to a servant. This was a bow from a junior to the only elder who ever showed me kindness all these years. It was my most sincere farewell. Take care, Elder Mo. Go on now. Elder Mo didn't look at me. He just waved his hand and kept wiping down his bookshelf. The outside world is really big. And really brutal, too. Keep your wits about you out there. I nodded, turned around and walked towards the exit. When I reached the doorway, I stopped in my tracks again and glanced back over my shoulder. Elder Mo still had his back turned to me. He was hunched over, wiping carefully, stroke after stroke, at those dust-covered ancient books. In the dim lighting, his figure looked lonely and tiny, but I knew. Hidden inside this golden sutra pavilion is the most clear-sighted person in the entire Xingxuan sect. I took a deep breath, didn't stay any longer, and strode over the threshold of the Golden Sutra Pavilion. The air at the foot of the mountain is way freer than up on the peak. Even the dust smells oddly fresh. I found a noodle stall at the intersection of Qingxi Town. I was just about to sit down and order a bowl of yangchun noodles when I heard a huge chaotic ruckus. Not far away, a candied hawthorn vendor, along with his entire stall cart, was knocked to the ground. Bright red hawthorns rolled all over the floor. A burly man covered in blood scrambled and stumbled right past me. Right on his heels was a young man in a flashy, showy black robe, trimmed with gold edges. He was holding an absurdly ornate curved saber in his hand. Blood was still dripping down from the blade. Tai Nu, try running again if you dare! The young man yelled curses as he chased. His voice was shrill and grating. You stole something from our 10,000 demon grotto, and you think you get to live. Today, I, the young master, will chop you up and feed you to the dogs. Another sect feud? Great. I shook my head and turned my attention back to the noodle stall menu. I just got out of one mess. I have zero interest in jumping into another. Whoever wants to meddle in this garbage can go ahead. Boss, 1 bowl of noodles, extra scallions. Coming right up. But that burly man called Nu just had to have the worst luck possible and stumbled straight towards where I was standing. He couldn't run anymore. His feet gave out under him, and he thudded right down at my feet, splattering mud all over my pant legs. I frowned. That black-robed young master also caught up right in front of me. He raised his curved saber, grinned viciously, and stabbed it towards the man's back heart. I was already about to move my foot away, but right at that second, the black token Elder Mo gave me that I kept in my robe suddenly started to warm up slightly. An extremely faint, but very familiar aura came from the burly man Tai Nu on the ground. The source of that aura seemed to be at his chest, which he was clutching tightly. It was from the same origin as Elder Mo's token. My heart skipped a beat. The curved saber sliced down with a sharp whistling sound. I didn't overthink it. Held out 2 fingers and gave a light pinch in the thin air. A sharp clang rang out. That curved saber that looked impossibly sharp was like it had hit an invisible wall and stopped dead in midair. The black-robed young master froze. He pushed as hard as he could forward, but the saber didn't move an inch. It was like it was locked tight by an invisible pair of iron pliers, hovered half an inch above Iron Slave's back, and couldn't move forward even a tiny bit. The air reeked of the 10,000 Demons Cave. The unique stench of blood and foul qi from its disciples, mixed with the scent of scallion oil and bone broth from the noodle stall, blending into a suffocating, stagnant aura. Street vendors, rogue cultivators carrying spiritual herbs and pills, cultivators drinking by the window in the tavern, all held their breath unconsciously, their eyes locked firmly between my fingertips and that curved blade. Only then did he turn his gaze to me, his face full of disbelief, with hidden shame and rage from being publicly defied in his eyes. Demonic qi surged all around him. The gold-trimmed black robe under the sun glowed with an eerie light. Who are you? How dare you meddle in 10,000 Demons Cave's business? Do you know I'm Mo Lin, the direct disciple and youngest son of the 10,000 Demons Cave Master? I ignored him, just looked down at the Iron Slave by my feet. His tightly covered chest, That ancient aura identical to the token's was growing stronger. The black token in my arm seemed to come alive, vibrating slightly from the heat, as if resonating with the object in the Iron Slave's arms from afar, letting out a faint hum only I could hear. That aura was ancient and vast, carrying the unique Tao rhythm of the great Emperor Hyoxian. It was definitely no ordinary object. "I'm talking to you, are you deaf?" Seeing that I completely ignored him, Mo Lin immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation, abruptly pulled back his curved blade. Ink-black demonic chi poured wildly into the blade. The dark blade glowed with an eerie purplish-black light. He turned the blade around and slashed viciously towards my neck. The wind howled sharply. The blade's intent carried a vicious power that could corrode one's soul. He obviously had killing intent, wanting to kill me right here on the street. Noisy. I was getting annoyed. I'd just escaped that suffocating cage of the Qingsuan sect. I just wanted to eat a bowl of hot noodles in peace, and just had to run into this stupid mess. I flicked my finger. A hawthorn that just rolled off the Tenghulu stand to my feet, covered in mud spots, was wrapped in a wisp of barely noticeable spiritual power, flew out like a bullet shot through the air, so fast that only a faint golden afterimage was left. Clang! The curved blade in Mo Lin, the black-robe young master's hand, was knocked flying immediately. Spinning several times in the air, the blade smashed the tavern's carved window lattice, sending wood chips flying everywhere. And finally, with a dull thud, it lodged into the thick wooden pillar of the nearby tavern, sinking 3 inches deep into the wood, leaving only the hilt outside, trembling nonstop, buzzing loudly, making the entire wooden pillar shake slightly. The whole street went silent instantly. The street vendors froze on the spot. The Tenghulu sticks in their hands fell to the ground, and they didn't even notice. Wandering rogue cultivators widened their eyes. They didn't even react when spiritual herbs spilled out of their dustpans. The drinkers in the tavern even put down their wine cups directly, holding their breath as lightly as possible, afraid of disturbing this unfathomably powerful figure in front of them. Everyone stared at me in shock, then looked at the hawthorn that fell on the ground, that had been smashed into a mushy mess. It was just the most ordinary common hawthorn. With just a flick of a finger, it knocked away the life magic weapon of the 10,000 Demons Cave's young master. This kind of power is at least at the great perfection of nascent soul stage or higher. Maybe even the legendary soul transformation great power, but I was dressed plainly, with a calm demeanor, nothing like those lofty sect elders. Mo Lin was also dumbfounded. He stared blankly at his numb, cracked web between his thumb and forefinger, right hand oozing traces of blood, then looked at the trembling curved blade on the pillar far away, and finally cast his terrified gaze at me, his lips trembling, his voice even changed pitch, with undisguisable fear. Who on earth are you? Around Greenstone Town, when did a figure like you appear? Just someone here to eat noodles, I said. Then I yelled to the noodle stall owner, my tone as calm as if nothing had happened. Boss, are my noodles ready? The boss jolted in fright, the hand holding the bowl trembling nonstop. Most of the scalding noodle soup spilled out onto the blue stone slabs, steaming up white mist. He replied in a hurry. Ready. Coming right up. Please wait a moment, senior. Mo Lin's face alternated between green and white, his expression unpredictable. He was used to running amok in the 10,000 Demons Cave. Relying on his status and cultivation, no one dared to provoke him within 1,000 li radius. But he wasn't stupid. Someone who could use a hawthorn to knock away his life magic weapon was definitely a big shot he couldn't afford to provoke. At least he's unbeatable below the Mahayana stage. He glared at me fiercely. Then he shot a vicious look at Tianyu on the ground. The hatred in his eyes was almost palpable. In the end, he didn't dare to make another move. His chest heaved violently. He gritted out a few words between his teeth. Oh, very well. You're protecting him today, sir. That makes you an enemy of Myriad Demon Cave. Tell me your name. Our Myriad Demon Cave will never let this go. We'll meet again. I took the noodle bowl the shop owner handed me. The smell of scallions hit my nose. Steam curled up from it. I didn't even look up. I only spat out one word. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable aura of power. It weighed on Morin's mind like a huge mountain. Get out. Morin's face instantly turned deep purple with rage. He was trembling all over with anger. His black robe was rustling loudly, but he didn't dare say another word after all. He flicked his sleeve hard. He growled at his subordinates behind him, who were too scared to step forward and hit at the street corner with weak legs. Go. The group turned around in a terrible mess. They didn't even dare to grab their soul sabers stuck in the pillar. They scurried away dejectedly. Even after they ran far away, you could still hear his unwilling, angry shouts, and his subordinates' careful, comforting voices. The crowd of onlookers on the street saw there was no more excitement, and were also afraid of the power I just showed. So they gradually dispersed. Their whispers were full of awe. They all kept guessing my identity. Some said I was an elder from a hidden sect. Others said I was a powerful wandering rogue cultivator. I sat down. I was just about to eat my noodles when Tianyu at my feet struggled to lift his head. His face was covered in blood and mud. His once strong body was now extremely weak. His eyes were weak but full of excitement. His voice was so hoarse you could barely hear it. Every word carried the relief of surviving a disaster. Thank you for saving my life, Senior. I can never repay your kindness for the rest of my life, Senior. As he spoke, he used all his strength to pull something out carefully from his blood-stained chest. His movements were so gentle, like he was handling the most precious treasure in the world. He was scared he'd damage it if he used too much force. It was a palm-sized, tattered animal hide. Its edges were frayed from wear. Its color was as dark as dead wood. But the second he pulled it out, the air around us seemed to grow a little heavier. An ancient, vast aura that seemed to come from the prehistoric era slowly spread out. It covered an area of several zhang around us. It was exactly the same as the token in my arms. The hide looked dry and brittle, like it could crumble to dust any second. But when I touched it, it was as warm and smooth as jade. It felt very delicate to the touch. The ancient aura coming off it couldn't fool anyone. The token in my arms got even hotter. It was almost hot enough to burn my palm. It seemed to be resonating with the hide from afar. The resonance echoed softly in my consciousness. Tianyu's hands were shaking. As he held the hide above his head, he knocked his forehead hard against the muddy ground. He hit it so hard he was bleeding from the head. Blood ran down his forehead, dripping onto the blue stone ground. He still refused to get up. His tone was pious and respectful. Senior, I have no way to repay you for saving my life. This is the treasure I stole from the deepest part of the forbidden area of Myriad Demon Cave. It's a partial map of the ancient heavenly sovereign Haoshin's cave mansion. Please take it, Senior. Myriad Demon Cave has been planning for this map for 100 years. Countless people died or got injured for it. If you take it, Senior, you will definitely find the Great Sovereign's inheritance. Ancient Great Sovereign. I glanced at the map. Messy lines outlined rolling mountains and broken canyons. Then I looked at the bowl of plain noodles that was already starting to get soggy on the table next to me. I spoke calmly, with no change in my tone at all. Get up first, the noodles are getting cold. Tianyu was stunned. He obviously didn't expect me to react like this. He thought I'd be over the moon, ask him all about the cave mansion, and rush to take the hide from him. He never thought I'd only care about a bowl of cold noodles. In his eyes, the inheritance of heavenly sovereign Haoshin was a treasure that could make the entire cultivation world go crazy. But to me, it wasn't even as good as a bowl of hot noodles. He climbed up in a daze, stood to the side, not knowing what to do with himself, like a kid who did something wrong. He hung his head and didn't dare look at me. He was still trembling slightly, and had no clue what he should do. I ignored him, picked up the bamboo chopsticks, and finished the bowl of noodles in no time. I even drank up every drop of the soup. It tasted just so-so. The warm soup slid down my stomach and chased away all tiredness from the long trip. My belly felt all warm and cozy. The comfort was indescribable. In my 20 years at Qingshuan sect, I had never felt this relaxed before. I put down the bowl and a few copper coins. The coins landed on the blue stone slab, making a crisp, clear clinking sound. Only then did I take the animal skin map from Tianyu's hand. It felt warm and smooth to the touch, nothing like its dry, shriveled outward appearance. The aura on it was exactly the same as Elder Mo's token. It clearly came from the same origin, the same ancient inheritance. The ghost face symbol on it matched perfectly with the patterns on the token, like a pair of matching keepsakes. The map was drawn very crudely, just like a little kid's doodle. There were only a few blurry mountain peaks and a bottomless rift canyon. The endpoint was a marker deep inside Duanlong Cliff. Next to it was a ghost face symbol, exactly identical to the one on my token. Tiny ancient runes were carved around the symbol. Only people with extremely powerful divine sense can make out the secrets hidden within. The 10,000 Demon Cave values this item a lot, I asked casually, as my fingertips brushed lightly over the animal skin surface, feeling the Tao rhythm flowing across it. Yes. He nodded in a hurry, bending even lower at the waist, his voice laced with lingering fear. It is said this is the only inheritance cave of the ancient Haoshian Great Emperor. It holds the Great Emperor's Tao lineage, supreme treasures, and the secret to ascension. The 10,000 Demon Cave has been planning for this map for over 100 years. More than 100 experts have died for it. Even 3 nascent soul elders were killed by the outer restrictions of the cave. I'm just a servant in charge of guarding the forbidden area. I got tempted for a moment, wanted to steal it to get a way out, and escape the enslavement of the 10,000 Demon Cave. The chance of surviving is next to 0. What are your plans for the future? A flash of confusion and fear crossed Tianu's face. His eyes dimmed, his voice filled with despair. His shoulders drooped slightly. I don't know. The 10,000 Demon Cave won't let me off. The world is huge. The cultivation world is vast. But I'm afraid there's no place left for me. I don't belong to any sect. My cultivation level is really low. I'll end up dead no matter where I go. I thought for a second, pulled out a heavy bag of gold leaves from my robe, and tossed it to him casually. The crisp, clinking sound of the gold leaves made him freeze abruptly. The bag landed right in his arms. It was really heavy, enough for him to live the rest of his life peacefully. Find a small town where no one knows you. Change your name. Run a small business. Open a tea house. Or a grocery store. Either works. Don't get mixed up in the cultivation world's affairs anymore. Hu Dandan instructed, his tone calm. Live a good life. That's better than anything else. The fights and killings in the cultivation world have nothing to do with you. He held the bag of gold leaves, his fingers trembling, tears and snot streaming down his face. He knelt down again with a loud thud, kowtowing heavily, his forehead hitting the bluestone slab with loud thumps. Senior, your great kindness is beyond words. I will work like an ox or a horse in my next life to repay you for saving my life. All right. I waved my hand, a little impatient. Stop kneeling, I'm leaving. After saying that, I turned around and left, my sleeve brushing lightly in the wind, my steps steady. I didn't look back. Tianu knelt where he was, staring at my fading back. He didn't stand up for a long time. His eyes were full of gratitude and reverence, he knew. The life he had narrowly saved would no longer be tied to the bloody chaos of the cultivation world. He could finally be an ordinary person and live a stable, peaceful life. I walked slowly along the streets of Qingshu town, avoiding the crowds, and reached the fork road at the town entrance. I looked up at the rolling mountains in the distance. Duanlong Cliff was right in the northwest direction, shrouded in thick clouds and mist. The mountain terrain is extremely steep. It's a dangerous spot all nearby cultivators avoid like the plague. I didn't fly with my sword, nor did I use any teleportation technique. I just relied on my own 2 feet, walking unhurriedly towards Duanlong Cliff. I passed a few bamboo groves and streams along the way. The spiritual energy here is thin, but it has more earthly warmth than the immortal energy of Qingshuan sect. I ran into a few low-level cultivators once in a while, or mortal herb collectors. We just brushed past each other in a hurry. No one noticed this seemingly ordinary traveler that's me. I stayed silent the whole way, savoring the freedom of leaving the sect. I hold no grudge in my heart. No unwillingness either. Nothing but complete calm. After walking for around 2 hours, the terrain gradually got steeper. Vegetation became sparse. Black miasma started spreading across the valley. The air carried a faint fishy stench. The surrounding temperature also dropped. All birds and beasts were gone. Even the chirping of insects had disappeared. I've reached Duanlong Cliff. Looking from a distance, Duanlong Cliff soars into the clouds. Its cliffs look like they were carved by knives and axes, straight and precipitous. There's a bottomless canyon in the middle, as if it was sliced open by a god with a single sword strike. Miasma fills the air here all year round. Cold winds blow nonstop. Not a single blade of grass grows here. No birds or beasts ever come near. It's known as a death trap among local cultivators. Rumor says anyone who enters is 100% sure to die. The bottom of the cliff is a rocky beach, with black rocks of all sizes, all with sharp edges. Stepping on them makes the soles of your feet ache badly. The black miasma rolls like thick fog. A single breath will mess up your spiritual power and damage your meridians. Low-level cultivators will die in just a few moments after entering. Even golden core cultivators can't last more than an hour. The location marked on the map is right in the middle of the rocky beach, under a dead crooked neck tree. This tree has been dead for ages. No one knows exactly how long. Its trunk is pitch black. Its branches are twisted, like a ghost's claw reaching for the sky. It looks extra eerie in the miasma. The trunk is covered in traces of time, but it faintly emits ripples of an ancient restriction. I walked up to the tree and paused for a second. I slowly spread out my spiritual sense, which covered the entire rocky beach in an instant. I could feel that the surrounding space was full of dense restrictions, stacked one on top of another, interlocked with each other, with killing intent hidden everywhere, from outside to inside. They go deeper layer by layer, getting more and more powerful. The outermost layer is a maze array set by golden core cultivators. It can trap people inside to death. They'll never find the way out. Further in is a killing array set by nascent soul experts. Sword energy crisscrosses everywhere, powerful enough to tear nascent soul cultivators apart. Even deeper is a space barrier left by soul formation grandmasters. It's extremely sturdy, almost impossible to break. At the very core, there's even a trace of ancient Tao restriction, carrying the faint Tao aura of Hyochin Great Emperor. Layers upon layers. It's extremely dangerous. No wonder 10,000 demons lair plotted for 100 years and still failed. If you try to break these by brute force, even an integration stage cultivator would get seriously injured. The slightest mistake, and you'll die and lose your cultivation forever. Your soul will be shattered into pieces. But I didn't stop. I just walked straight right through, my steps steady. I didn't use any defensive spells, nor did I activate spiritual energy to protect my body. Those sword energy restrictions that can kill nascent soul cultivators, when I walked past them, were just like gentle breezes, brushing past me lightly, not hurting me at all. When the sword energy touched the aura around me, it automatically disappeared without a trace. Those space barriers that can trap soul formation experts were as if they didn't exist in front of me. They didn't even cause a single ripple. It's like I'm a part of the space itself. For me, these restrictions that cost countless people their hard work and left 10,000 demons lair helpless are nothing but toys built by children, totally fragile and worthless. I walked to the dead tree and stretched out my right hand. My fingertip gently touched the rough tree trunk. I applied a little force with my fingertip and casually pushed open an unlatched door. Wow. A faint spatial ripple spread out. Ancient Taoist aura spread out. On the trunk of the dead tree, a pitch-black cave opening appeared out of nowhere. It was incredibly deep and dark. With no end in sight, a faint scent matching the token's origin drifted out from inside, warm and thick. Not a single hint of malice. The cave was really dark and really deep. I lifted my foot and walked in, my steps steady. Not a shred of hesitation. The cave wasn't as gilded and gorgeous as I imagined. No magic artifacts scattered everywhere. No immortal herbs or spirit vines. No traps or mechanisms either. Nor guardian divine beasts. Just a long, narrow passage, ancient runes carved on the walls, giving off a faint white glow, lighting up the path ahead. At the end of the passage was an empty, plain stone room. All four walls were smooth, carved with blurry ancient patterns. A simple bluestone platform sat right in the middle. The platform had no decorations at all, but it carried the aura of the greatest Tao being the simplest. A milky white jade slip lay quietly on the platform. Other than that, there was nothing else. It was surprisingly clean. I stepped forward, picked up the jade slip. The jade slip was ice cold. No spiritual power fluctuations on it at all. It carried a Tao aura that seemed to embrace the entire world. The moment my divine sense touched it, I felt the boundless information inside. I pushed my divine sense further in, a vast, surging stream of information that seemed to hold all things in the world. Flooded into my mind in an instant, no violent impact. Just a gentle seeping feeling, like spring rain nourishing the earth, filling the gaps in my knowledge bit by bit. It wasn't some earth-shattering cultivation technique, nor some world-destroying magical power, nor some secret pill recipe that could boost my cultivation. It was a method to temper your own spiritual power, divine sense, and even your physical body over and over again. Purify it constantly. Remove all impurities. Cast aside all external forces. Don't rely on magic artifacts. Don't depend on your sect. Until all methods merge into one, your physical body becomes saintly, and your divine sense becomes immortal. The Great Evolution Unification Technique. This thing is useless for cultivators. At the chi refining or foundation establishment stage, even for great masters at the nascent soul, or soul transformation stage, it still feels totally unobtainable. Just like waste paper, because they've long relied on external forces, it's impossible for them to achieve true unification. But for someone like me who's already at the threshold of the Mahayana stage, with no clear path ahead, and never relied on sect resources, this is no different from lighting a guiding lamp in endless darkness. Turns out there's a path beyond Mahayana. Turns out the true Great Tao doesn't lie in external forces, not in magic artifacts or resources, but in unifying your own self, in focusing on nothing else, in breaking free from all restraints. I stood in front of the stone platform, eyes closed, focused, completely still. I digested and understood every single word of the information in the jade slip thoroughly and merged it into myself. Every word of the Great Evolution Unification Technique, every single rune, was deeply engraved in the depths of my divine sense, matching my own cultivation perfectly. I don't know how much time passed. 1 incense stick, 1 hour, or a whole day. When I had fully digested all the information in the jade slip, I slowly opened my eyes. A flicker of realization crossed my eyes. The aura around me fluctuated slightly, but none of it leaked out at all. I became even more reserved, like the water in a deep pond. Looks calm on the surface, but actually unfathomable. The jade slip in my hand cracked with a snap, turned into ash, scattered with the wind. The entire cave's mission seemed to be completed. The stone room shook slightly. The runes on the walls gradually dimmed. Obviously, the inheritance had been passed on. The cave was about to collapse. I turned around to leave. But the moment I stepped out of the cave opening and returned to the bottom of Broken Dragon Cliff, my heart clenched hard. A violent, chaotic, killing, intent-filled spiritual power fluctuation came from the northern sky without any warning, like a huge boulder smashing into a calm lake, stirring up monstrous waves. All the spiritual energy in the world was wailing. Trembling as if afraid of some devastating power, I jerked my head up, looking toward the direction of Qingxuan sect. The sect gate where I've lived for over 20 years, built with the painstaking efforts of past sect ancestors. The mountain protection array that guarded the sect for thousands of years was torn apart inch by inch. Crushed, the golden mountain protecting barrier was teetering on collapse. The sound of runes shattering could be heard clearly even hundreds of miles away. The spiritual energy of the whole world was wailing. I could clearly see a giant axe burning with raging flames. That was over 10 feet long. Kept slashing time and time again at Qingxuan sect's mountain-protecting barrier. With every single impact, the entire Qingxuan sect mountain range shook violently. The barrier dimmed a little. Countless golden runes shattered and faded away with it. The light of the mountain protection array got dimmer and dimmer. It was on the verge of total collapse. People from Liang Valley, no one else would use such a domineering and violent, giant flame axe reeking of destructive aura, and no one else has such a life-or-death blood feud with Qingxuan sect. My dad, who cared so much about saving face, valued sect honor more than his own biological daughter. Gu Zhengcheng, the leader of Qingxuan sect, was hovering in midair right now, his face as pale as a sheet of paper, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. His natal sword was damaged. His psyche was also badly wounded. His aura was weak and listless. The Qingxuan sword in his hand glowed faintly and looked dull and lifeless. The crack on the blade that I poked open with one finger looked like an ugly scar, constantly eating away at the sword's spiritual power. The crack kept growing wider, almost ready to split the whole sword apart. Since the natal sword is damaged and linked directly to his psyche, he'd be lucky if he can even channel half of my full strength. Sure enough, the burly man opposite him, carrying a giant axe, had fiery red hair and a ferocious scowl on his face, was none other than Li Qingtian, master of Liayang Valley. Gu Zhengcheng cut off one of his arms 20 years ago. Now his cultivation has improved drastically, and he's here for revenge. He just let out a vicious grin, his eyes filled with the joy of revenge. He swung his axe down again. Flames surged violently, with even greater power than before. Gu Zhengcheng, today is the day your Qingzuan sect gets wiped out. Gu Zhengcheng barely raised his sword to block, his arm trembling, his spiritual power all messed up. He had no way to withstand this thunderous strike. There was a loud clang that echoed all through the skies. He was like a kite with a broken string, and slammed straight into the roof of the main peak hall. Broken stones and wooden beams flew everywhere. Dust and smoke billowed all around. He was completely buried under the rubble, with no one knowing if he was alive or dead.